In the New Testament, we find the letter from Paul to Philemon, a very personal letter in which Paul, who is old and is in jail, writes to his friend and co-worker Philemon to talk to him about a slave that had run away from his house, Onesimus. And this letter talks a lot about the power of the gospel, shows the power of the gospel to transform lives. I'm going to read from verses 9 and 10. The second part of 9 and verse 10 says, I, Paul, as an old man and now a prisoner of the Messiah Jesus, appeal to you on behalf of my child Onesimus, whose father I have become during my imprisonment. In verse 11 he says, once he was useless to you, but now he is very useful both to you and me. So that was the testimony of Paul, who was in jail, and Onesimus, who was a slave that ran away from Philemon's house, probably after stealing some money, some goods. He ended up in jail and became a fellow prisoner with Paul. Now, in jail, he came to know Christ. His life was transformed. It was time for him to get out of jail, and Paul is writing this letter to his master, Philemon, telling him to receive him back, to forgive him. And you see, the power of the gospel transforms lives. We can see in the testimony of the letter of Paul to Philemon how Onesimus, before Christ, he was a slave, and after Christ, he was being received as a brother in the faith. Before Christ, he was useless. After Christ, he became useful to Paul, useful to Philemon. Before Christ, he was without hope in jail. After Christ, he had a hope and he was free. The words of the Bible, the words of the message of Christ, have the power to transform lives, just like the one of Onesimus. As much as we can, just like Paul, regardless of our circumstances, we need to share the message of the gospel, share the words of God in any available manner, verbally, digitally, in printed form, because the words of Christ have the power to transform life, to make a prisoner a free man, to make a slave a brother in the faith, and to make a useless person useful for the glory of God.